Call to order the 61st meeting of the 40th Council, February 10th, 2025. And the first order of business will be a moment of reflection. Thank you. Additions and approval of the agenda. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stimson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Resolved that the agenda for the 61st meeting of the 40th Council be approved as presented. In favor? Carried. Next order of business is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. It can be declared now or any time during the meeting. Moving on to number 5, minutes from the previous meeting. Committee of the Whole meeting, January 27th. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Stimson. Resolved that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held January 27th, 2025 be received and filed. In favor? Carried. Next is the meeting minutes from January 27th. Moved by Councillor Stimson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Resolved that the minutes of the 59th meeting of the 40th Council held January 27th, 2025 be adopted as written. In favor? Carried. Next is the meeting minutes from the special meeting February 3rd. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Stimson. Resolved that the minutes of the 60th meeting of the 40th Council held February 3rd, 2025 be adopted as written. In favor? Carried. Is there any matters arising out of these minutes anyone would like to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move on to Administration and Employee Relations, bylaw number 09-25. Moved by Councillor Stimson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Resolved that bylaw number 09-25, being a bylaw to appoint an acting mayor, be read first, second, and third time and finally passed. In favor? Carried. Next is bylaw number 10-25. Moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Stimson. Resolved that bylaw number 10-25, being a bylaw to appoint signing officers, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. In favor? Carried. Next is bylaw number 11-25. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Lyons. Resolved that bylaw number 11-25, being a bylaw to enter into an extension agreement with Jackie Johnson for janitorial services at the municipal office, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. In favor? Carried. And lastly, bylaw number 12-25, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Lyons. Resolved that bylaw number 12-25, being a bylaw to enter into an extension agreement with Jackie Johnson for janitorial services at the Atikoka Medical Clinic building, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. In favor? Carried. And we'll move on to Public Works, Airport Waste and Management. You have a resolution moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Lyons, Resolve that council approve up to $50,000 plus applicable taxes to Northern Crack Sealers for airport and road crack sealing. In favor? Carried. Next is fire and property, bylaw number 4-25. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Stimpson. Resolve that bylaw number 4-25, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Ministry of the Solicitor General, Office of the Fire Marshal, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. In favor? Carried. Next is appoint council representation. Moved by Councillor Stimpson, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Resolve that Atikokan Town Council appoint Councillor Shine to the Fire Rescue Contract Negotiations Committee. In favor? Carried. Okay, next is supplementary committees, and it's Rainy River District OPP Detachment, Atikokan Board. Councillor Johnson, meeting minutes from January 23rd.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. You have the minutes in front of you. I was unfortunately not able to attend the meeting, but I've read the minutes, and if anyone has any questions, I'll attempt to answer them.
Yes, Councillor Stimpson.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. I'm just wondering, in the paper, when they report the crime stats, I think it's for the whole Rainy River District. Would there be any chance of getting the inspector to break it down so that we can see what kind of crimes are happening in Atikokan specifically, and the charges laid?
Councillor Stimpson, at our next meeting, I will ask him for your request and bring you back an answer.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm on that committee as well, and Councillor Johnson, I'll just, if it's okay for me to speak on that. The majority of them are just for Atikokan. There is some that do take into account for the whole district, but we are our own police services board. So it's the Atikokan Police Services Board, and then it's the Rainy River District Police Services Board is actually a separate board.
Oh, okay.
We are fortunate to have our own. We don't, even though we are working with the Rainy River Detachment, we are our own autonomous board in Atikokan.
I remember Debbie Breer and I went down to Toronto to argue that, and again in Thunder Bay, and we're quite pleased when they did that. But I just thought that when they brought down the stats, it was, some of them sometimes seem a little bit high, you know, like.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, you were on the police services board. You served on that for a number of years, Brian, or Councillor Stimpson, and a lot of it is. It sounds like a big number, but a lot of them are calls. Like we see the fraud stats are a lot higher. So when somebody reports to the OPP that we are getting a call for you know, a scam on the phone, and someone reports it, that becomes a fraud claim or a fraud stat. So it does change. You also see that some of the numbers we'll look at, and you'll see the assault is up 50% in Atikokan this year. Well, that's because there was 2 last year, and there was, or 3 last year and 2 the year before, so it's up, you know, that much. So the numbers are small, but yeah, sorry to get off. Anything else, Councillor?
Oh, that's fine, thank you.
Great. Next is the Museum of Atikokan. Counselor Shine, but Counselor Shine's not here. Is there somebody else on that committee? No? Patty, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. These are the minutes for the January 9th meeting. They covered the activity at the museum from November to December, or November and December. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
I'll have a question. How was your grand opening for the hockey exhibit?
It went really well. So 81 attended the hockey game outside, and 56 people came into the museum.
Nice,
Yeah, so really well attended.
nice.
Very good. Good job on that, Patty. Thank you for that. Any questions for Patty? Well, I didn't know, as a curator, Patty, or what's your name going to be? No? Hearing none, okay, I'll move on. Atikokan General Hospital Board, Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Apologies, they are installing a sink behind me now, and this is the exact moment they are using a reciprocating saw. So, attached are the meeting minutes from November 6th, which, as we know in the healthcare field, is seems like a world ago. If you have any questions based on the minutes that have been provided, I'm happy to answer any questions. I did attend that meeting. Those meetings are quite fulsome, and quite a bit goes on at them. But from a very high level, the hospital remains in a healthy position, and there's a lot going on as far as making sure that we secure provincial funding and that moving forward. So very happy with how things are progressing at the hospital, and I think we have very little to worry about as a community as far as our health services go. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Knowles? Okay, hearing none, we are at the end of our meeting. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Stimpson. Resolved that this meeting do now adjourn. In favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned.